Welcome to our channel, Behind My Story. Please like, share, and subscribe.
Hello, my name is Andrew and I'm 17 years old. Playing tennis has been my great passion since I was a kid. Focus, stamina, and fast reaction times are key requirements of this game. I began playing tennis in primary school, and on my way to the top, I have faced some strong players, some of whom were older than me, but I beat them nevertheless. As I grew up and became more proficient, my ambition grew stronger too. My desired dream was to win the Grand Slam Championship and revel in the applause and cheering. I entered the national championship and reached the final match, which was to be played against a strong player. If he were to win the match, his next step would be the Olympics, so I intended to beat him at any cost. The problem was that he was more skilled than me. Fortunately, I believe that the end justifies the means, so I made a deal with one of his training crew members to put an anesthetic in his water bottle. As they say, money talks and makes all things possible. I'm not evil, I'm just pursuing my dreams by the most direct route possible. In the first half of the match, his powerful smashes allowed him to dominate the game. It was a pretty one-sided match. During the break, however, he drank some of the drugged water and suddenly felt very fatigued. The referee noticed his fatigue and asked him if he wanted to forfeit the game, but he refused. Needless to say, I dominated the second half of the match and won rather easily, to everyone's amazement. I was later nominated for the world title. I won many easy matches in the beginning, but in the semifinals, I was matched with a player who was even stronger than the one I had beaten in the national championship. Once again, I put my devious scheme in motion and bribed one of his crew members with a hefty sum of money. Once again, I was the disadvantaged player in the first half of the match. Then during the break, my opponent drank the drugged water from his bottle. As expected, I dominated the second half of the match. Just as I had taken the lead in the match, the referee stopped the game and directed two security guards to arrest me. Some security cameras had recorded the bribed individual drugging my rival's water bottle. The authorities had confronted my partner in crime, and he had confessed and turned me in. Consequently, I was disqualified from the match. As they say in sports, you win some, you lose some.
I come from a wealthy family, also a really honorable one. My mom is a surgeon and my dad is a pharmacist. On top of that, my older brother has always been an A student. However, I have always found it hard to keep up with them. I have always had a hate-love relationship with school. To say the least, I'm a pretty average student. The only thing that kept me going was my one dream of studying computer science. Going to university was the most exciting moment in my whole life. I was finally studying something that I'm actually good at. I was so eager to meet new people and make new friends who shared the same interest as me. The moment I joined college, I just threw myself into trying new things and studying. But things did not go as expected. Everything, starting from the people I met to the super long and boring lectures I had, were too stressful. I struggled to balance between my deadlines, my part time job, and socializing. I hated every moment of it, to the extent that I thought I should just give up on my only dream. But college was not just about me, it was also about making my parents proud. And so I had to find a solution. My name is Lillian, and this is how I ruined my college experience. After a big while of procrastinating, not meeting my deadlines, and barely passing my exams, it was time to do something. I was just walking down the hallways when I found a banner for a club. It was called Brain Hackers, and I thought the name was a definite red flag. But I decided to give it a try anyways. Later that afternoon, I met with the head of the club. Her name was Emily. We chatted for a while, and it turned out that it is a club for the top achievers slash geniuses. I asked her if I could join, and she said that she will have to meet up with the dean to make sure that I'm a top student. Well, I got a bit nervous and disappointed. There was no way I could join their club. A couple of days later, I was at the library trying to write an essay, but instead, I had my eyes glued to my phone. Some guy approached me and said he could help me join the Brain Hackers Club. And then we met outside and he introduced himself. His name was Brad. Well, he didn't need to introduce himself. I already knew who he was. He was the best student in my most boring class. Brad said that he got a scholarship to join university when he was in high school. I was not sure what he was getting at. To my surprise, he handed me a couple of pills out of nowhere. I was a bit lost as to what am I supposed to do with them. He explained that these are called study drugs and that everyone is taking them. He promised that if I take one before writing my next essay, I would be surprised. I politely accepted the pills, but I just put them in my bag and decided that I shouldn't take them. A week passed by and I had to write a 4,000-word essay on a subject I've never studied before. And to be honest, I did contemplate the idea of popping one of the pills, but I thought it was a bad idea. I ended up researching those pills online instead of writing my essay. All over the internet were articles about people using those smart drugs. It was just so overwhelming. Everyone was raving about how those pills helped them unlock their brains. Anyways, I did not meet the deadline to submit my unwritten essay. And that was the first time in my life to fail a class. I couldn't even tell my parents. I also had my midterm exams coming up, and I had no choice but to give the pills a try. Within around 30 minutes, I could feel my eyes open wider than they did before. I could feel the sound of my heart beating against my chest, and small beads of sweat started to appear on my forehead. The little voice I usually heard inside my head that always said things like, "You should check your social media," or "You've done enough work for the day, get some rest." It suddenly went quiet for the first time in so many years. And it was like the only things that mattered to me were the keyboard and the open books in front of me. I got into such a state of flow, I swear that you could see smoke coming out from the books. I was laser reading them. And that was it. Starting from that moment on, I was convinced that this was a miracle drug. When I got the results back, I got an A. That was my highest grade so far. I was happy, ecstatic, and it felt like I had a secret weapon against boredom and lecturers who just read paragraphs from a slide. The pills I got from Brad gave me a supply that lasted me from that final essay until my exams. I started thinking that I hacked the university system. And this is when the dependence started. It happened slowly and over time. At first, I only took the pill for big days, like when I had to write essays or take an exam. However, after my first bit of success, I started taking them almost daily. Whenever I ran out of them, Brad would always offer me more. I would pop one pill when I woke up and another one around noon. At first, this had the effect of making me productive all day long. I was so blinded by my grades and my thirst for success, I just ignored every single red flag. Soon enough, I had finally become a member of the Brain Hackers Club. That meant I could finally fit in with the smart group. Even my professors were amazed at how much I've developed. This was only my first year in college. During second year, my grades started to slip. I am sure that my constant irritation and tiredness contributed to it, and I thought that the answer was more pills. I started taking a much higher dose, but the same problems were still there. I was constantly tired because the pills barely made me sleep at all. This led me to failing all of my exams except for one, which I got a very low score on. For some odd reason, the only thing I cared about was not getting kicked out of the Geniuses Club, and that was when I ran to Brad for help. He told me that he talked Emily into giving me another chance. I thought to myself that the only way I could keep my chance was to take more and more smart drugs. Before I even asked Brad if it was safe or not, He had new pills ready in his pockets. He said that those were the newest smart drugs on the market and that they're much better than the old ones. Later that night, I was doing some research on my laptop when I started to get sleepy. That was when I decided to try the new smart pills. I took one pill, and 1 hour later, it kicked in. I was glued to my laptop screen until morning. There was no time to get any kind of rest, and I had to meet with the club members. During the meeting, I felt my heart beat in my head. I had sweaty palms, and my breath was short. I started seeing beams of light, I felt dizzy, and my hands were shaking badly. All I remember is mumbling to Emily that I badly needed some water. Next thing I know, I woke up in the ER room, and Emily was right beside me. The doctor came to the room and said that I had an unknown substance in my system. And before I could ask him what was wrong with me, he just left. Emily stood up and suspiciously asked me what was going on. I just panicked and started crying and begging her not to tell the dean. She said she will have my back as long as I tell her the truth. I told her everything, and she was in complete shock. I stopped popping the pills for a whole week after that incident. It was almost summer break, and I had to get myself together before I went back home. During one of my classes, Brad and I were called into the dean's office. I felt my heart drop to the floor. When we entered the office, Emily was already there, and the dean looked quite upset. I don't want to bore you with the details of a 2-hour conversation, but to sum everything up, Brad acted innocent, I protested, and the dean threatened that both of us will get kicked out. I had 2 days to prove that Brad was guilty. Let me tell you that if college has taught me anything so far, it is how to hack a computer and get away with it. Now, I'm not saying that that was a good thing to do, but I had little to no choice here. I'm ashamed to say that on that same night, I hacked Brad's computer. I had to find out where he was getting those pills from. I went through his email and found a long, long thread of his dirty work. Brad has been in contact with a group of students from medicine school for 2 years. They asked him to try new drugs on people in exchange for a big chunk of money. I got sick to my stomach. I have been taking unknown drugs for I don't even know how long. I wonder what the long-term side effects might be, but instead of being dragged into a loop of self-pity, I decided to print out all the evidence, including the bank transactions. I wanted to save myself and expose Brad and those other students he's been helping. Next morning, I decided to show the dean all the evidence and get Brad to confess. I thought I had it all figured out, but it slipped my mind that the dean will definitely find out that I hacked his computer. I had to come up with another plan. The only way was to get Brad to confess, and for that to happen, I had to confront him. I texted him, but he did not reply back. A few hours later, I just ran into him. He almost pushed me when I told him that I had evidence for everything that he's been doing. He called me a liar and a few other names. However, when I told him the exact amount of money he took from them, his face changed color, and I finally felt like a winner. Brad just sat down on the floor, buried his head between his knees, and started crying. I was not prepared for this kind of reaction, but I was not about to fall for his tricks again. I told him that whatever he does and no matter how much he cries, that will not change my mind about telling the dean. He raised his head and said, "I am such an evil person." And I have no idea why, but it broke my heart. I sat down on the floor next to him and asked, "What made you do it?" And what Brad told me later changed everything. He said, "My parents died when I was 10 years old. I had to work and go to school. I had no money. I went days without food. My uncle took me and took all of my money. I had to pursue my only dream, and that was to be a student here. There was no way I could afford it. I shouldn't have taken the easy way out. I shouldn't have hurt you like that. I just needed the money so bad. And now my whole future is at stake. I'm begging you, I will do anything, but please don't destroy my life like that. And when he was done, I was not sure what to do anymore. Let me know in the comment section if Brad should pay for what he did, or should I help him expose the medicine students?